As you saw in the first part of this video, many heart transplant recipients described a personality change, reporting that they have acquired the tastes, emotions, and even the memories of their deceased donors. The simplest and most popular explanation for this intriguing phenomenon is the hospital grapevine theory, according to which patients may be influenced by the information they hear from nurses talking to each other or from their surgeons while they are under anesthesia. Although it is forbidden to disclose the identity of the donor or any other personal information, there is no such rule that prevents the hospital staff from talking among themselves. Therefore, transplant recipients may be influenced, consciously or unconsciously, by stories heard from hospital staff. Another explanation would be the response to the traumatic and life-threatening experience of having an organ transplant. In most cases, the transplant is done only if death is imminent, so should come as no surprise that the personality of many transplant recipients changes significantly, and some of these changes may be interpreted as being consistent with the donor's behaviors and personality. Another theory is that the immunosuppressive drugs that the transplant recipients receive to prevent their own bodies from attacking the new organ could have psychoactive side effects and could create an illusion of personality change. All these explanations are based on the mainstream belief that behaviors, thought processes, memory, and emotional patterns are solely functions of the brain. However, as I pointed out in many videos presented on my channel, especially those on nutrition, the complexity of the human body cannot be fully understood by taking into consideration the discoveries made in just one particular field of research, but only by connecting the knowledge that we have in all fields of science. There is no doubt that the information we get from internal and external stimuli is processed by the brain, but this doesn't necessarily mean that information is stored only in the brain. And let's consider a simple example. For you to become aware of the information presented in this video, you need an internet connection. This can be Wi-Fi or satellite internet, both using radio waves to transmit information, fiber optic internet, which relies on light of different wavelengths to carry data from multiple sources along a cable and can send information as fast as about 70% of the speed of light, or Li-Fi, which transmits data through the visible, ultraviolet, and infrared spectrum and needs only a light source and a chip to transmit an internet signal, being able to send information at a speed about 100 times faster than traditional Wi-Fi. Once you have access to the internet signal, in the form of electromagnetic radiation, the information is converted to electrical signals by the device on which you are watching this video, whether you are using a smartphone, tablet, laptop, desktop PC, or TV, and played back in the form of sound and images. As you watch the video, the photoreceptors from the retina pick up the information from the visible spectrum and generate an electrical impulse for every color, hue, and brightness, while the mechanoreceptors from the inner ear convert sound vibrations to electrical nerve impulses. These electrical signals from within your body are carried through the nervous system to the brain, where a group of neurons in a certain area, in turn, trigger electrical signals and neurotransmitters to thousands of other neighboring neurons. Following this process, you become aware of the information in this video and of any other information you gain during your lifetime for that matter. This is how you learned everything you know, by converting electromagnetic waves and sound waves into electrical impulses and with the help of neurotransmitters. And now, let's find the explanation for the changes in personality after the heart transplant by connecting some of the knowledge we have about the cells, the heart, water, and electromagnetism, and by looking at the human body as a whole. We are born from the union of a woman's ovum, which has a water content of over 70%, and a male's spermatozoon, which density, and also its quality, depend almost entirely on its water content. Through the process of cellular division, these two cells turn into tens, thousands, millions, and trillions of cells, forming the internal and the external organs, and ultimately, the human body. As I already presented in the first episode of the playlist entitled 9 Things Most People Don't Know About Water, in 2013, Dr. Gerald Pollack, professor of bioengineering at the University of Washington, Seattle, discovered that inside the cells there is an exclusion zone in which the water pushes out any impurities, similar to the crystals found in ice. This EZ water, as Dr. Pollack called it, absorbs electromagnetic energy in the ultraviolet range, and when infrared electromagnetic energy is applied, the EZ water builds and doesn't diminish. Furthermore, Not only that water formed in the EZ zone can hold energy, much like a battery, but it can deliver energy too. And, since I presented the example of how the information in this video comes to your awareness, in 2021, Dr. Pollack published a study according to which the presence of Wi-Fi has a negative impact on EZ water buildup. Under the conditions of the experiments presented in the study, exposure to Wi-Fi energy diminished EZ size by 15 to 20%. In the past few decades, scientists have made significant discoveries about the cell. They identified all of the internal parts of a cell, how cells convert nutrients into energy, how they divide, how they copy themselves, etc. Yet, they still haven't found the answer to a simple question: how does a cell know what to do? There are about 200 different types of cells in the human body, each type performing a unique and special function, having thus a different structure, size, and shape. How does a cell know that it has to become a nerve cell, red blood cell, or bone cell? And how do more cells know that they have to group into a certain number to form the heart, the stomach, or the brain? It is a well-known fact that cells are communicating between them. Each cell is sending and receiving messages in its environment and within itself. Yet, despite our technical advances, the global understanding of signal transduction, its internal hierarchies, and its highly integrated dynamic nature remains largely mysterious. Each cell has its own respiratory system, digestive, excretory, endocrine, integumentary, nervous, reproductive, and immune system, and the normal functioning of all these systems, as well as the cell's health and ability to reproduce, are strictly related to the cell's water content. We spend our first 38 to 40 weeks in our mother's womb, surrounded by the amniotic fluid, which is 98% water. In this watery environment, we develop all our major anatomical systems, and the first organ that forms, in the first 15 to 21 days after conception, when the embryo is only 2 to 3 millimeters long, is the heart. Although it is considered by most cardiologists to be a mere muscular organ that is controlled by the brain and does nothing else but pump blood throughout the body, the truth is that the heart doesn't need the brain, or a body for that matter, to keep beating. Of course, the brain exerts an influence on the heart, but it doesn't actually control the beat of the heart. The heart has its own electrical system, and everything it needs to stay alive is found within the heart itself. This is why the heart can continue to beat after the brain's death, or even after being removed from the body. Moreover, as I already mentioned in my video about how far your thoughts and feelings are spreading, scientists have discovered that the heart has an intrinsic nervous system of its own, containing around 40,000 neurons, called sensory neurites. These neurons are connected differently and more elaborately than elsewhere in the body, and they operate independently in their own right. The heart communicates with the brain in 4 major ways: neurologically, through the transmission of nerve impulses; biochemically, via hormones and neurotransmitters; biophysically, through pressure waves; and energetically, through electromagnetic field interactions. Communication along all these conduits significantly affects the brain's activity and performance. Scientists from the HeartMath Institute found that the heart can be influenced by the messages sent from the brain, but it does not necessarily obey them all the time. Moreover, the heart's mini-brain sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart and exercises its own influence on the brain. Scientists have also discovered a type of cells, called intrinsic cardiac adrenergic cells, that synthesize and release neurochemicals such as dopamine and other substances previously thought to exist only in the brain. They also found that, when the muscular walls of the heart's atria, the upper chambers of the heart, contract, the heart produces a hormone that profoundly affects every major organ of the body, including the brain. Called atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, this neurohormone communicates directly with the thalamus, the part of the brain that processes all information from the body's senses, except smell, before being sent to the brain's cerebral cortex for interpretation. The thalamus also plays an important role in sleep, wakefulness, consciousness, learning, and memory. ANP is also influencing directly the hypothalamus, the main link between the endocrine system and the nervous system. The main function of the hypothalamus is to keep the body in a stable state, called homeostasis, and it also regulates the body temperature, fatigue, mood, sex drive, and hunger, among many others. The ANP produced by the heart also affects directly the pineal gland, which regulates the production of melatonin that is related to our sleep-wake cycle, aging processes, and general energy level, and the pituitary gland, which produces and releases several hormones that help carry out important bodily functions, including growth, metabolism, and response to stress or trauma. And just recently, in 2021, scientists discovered a new type of heart cell called cardiac nexus glia. Glial cells are present throughout the nervous system and are critical for normal development and function. Although previously, scientists believed that nexus glia occurred only in the central nervous system, this recently discovered type of heart cell may explain certain congenital abnormalities and other cardiac diseases. And these are just some of the findings that show that the heart is not just a mere muscular organ whose sole role is to pump blood throughout the body. In terms of electrical activity, the heart produces the largest rhythmic electromagnetic field of any of the body's organs. Scientists at the HeartMath Institute found that the heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than that generated by the brain, and the magnetic component of the heart's field is around 100 times stronger than that produced by the brain. And, while the brain's electrical activity can be measured only in the skull area, the heart's electromagnetic field can be detected up to 1 meter away from the body, in all directions. As Dr. Paul Pearsall rightly pointed out in his book, The Heart's Code, Tapping the Wisdom and Power of Our Heart Energy, medical science has been afraid to take the logic of the known physics of electrocardiograms and magnetocardiograms to their inevitable conclusion. ECGs and MCGs are measured outside the body. This means that the heart's biophysical energy and information travel throughout the body and reaches the outside of the skin. Heart sounds, another source of energy and information, also travel through the fluids and make their way to the outside of the skin. Now, what happens to all this measurable energy and information once it reaches the skin? Does it simply stop? Disappear? Is it to be ignored? Forgotten? And now, let's talk a little about water, the main component of the heart, and in fact, of every single cell, and of the human body as a whole. It is a well-known fact that water is influenced by electromagnetic fields, and you can notice this by simply placing a filled balloon next to a water flow. Furthermore, water has the ability to receive, store, and transmit electromagnetic information. In 2009, Professor Dr. Luc Montagnier, a joint recipient of the 2008 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discovery of the human immunodeficiency virus, detected electromagnetic signals induced by bacterial DNA in high aqueous dilutions, and he managed to imprint the water with particular frequencies that can kill the waves produced by the bacterial DNA. Moreover, as unbelievable as it might sound, in 2014, Dr. Montagnier and Professor Dr. Giuseppe Vitiello reconstructed out of pure water the DNA of a patient infected with HIV after sending the electromagnetic signal emitted by the DNA sequence from France to Italy via the internet as an email attachment. And if you want to find out more about this intriguing experiment, I recommend you to watch the 7th episode of the series about water, found on my channel. Now, with these basics in mind, let's go back to the example of how you become aware of the information presented in this video. Before you know it, before it is processed by your brain, and even before it reaches your eyes and your ears, the electromagnetic signal coming from the device on which you are watching this video has already reached your heart. Metaphorically speaking, we are nothing more than little water cells bathing in an endless ocean of light and information. A person's heart can store and transmit his or her thoughts and feelings, and not just in the case of a transplant. As Dr. Pearsall wrote, simple physics tells us that energy and information leave the body and go out into space. It reaches our loved ones and our pets and plants, it extends to the sky, and yes, logically, the electromagnetic fields expand into the vacuum of space at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. Though the signal strength will obviously be very tiny, each second after our heartbeats, our individual heart's code is expanded and traveled 186,000 miles into space. Like star codes, whose energy and information travel through space forever, and we are made of the matter, energy, and information derived from ancient stars, so too, logically, does our heart's code, the largest source of biophysical energy in the body, travel through space forever. If you liked this video, please don't forget to share it with your friends and family And, if you haven't done it already, please make sure you subscribe for more exciting videos. Thank you very much.